What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Wake Up Call. Honestly, thank you for being here. There is 1,000 different podcasts out there, and there's a million and one things vying for your attention every minute of every day. And I do imagine some of you might be listening right now because you're curious if I've totally lost my mind and you want a front row seat at this meteoric crash. And I totally get that. I think I'd be curious too. And I think the jury is still out if I have lost my mind. But if I have, I feel like I might not be the only one. But here's the deal. Over the course of this podcast, you'll get to know me probably too well. I'm going to do my very best to keep it as real as possible with you. No character, no mask, no work persona, just me, just Scott Barker in a way that you likely haven't heard before. And my hope is that this becomes a place where you can come to feel seen, understood, and hear some real raw stories. You'll hear my own story. And I got to say, it is a pretty crazy one. And a lot of other, quote unquote, successful people who will share some really intimate personal stories. And if I do say so myself, the guest lineup is pretty incredible. Many of these folks you probably know from their online presence or persona, but I promise that you won't have heard, this side of their story. Because oftentimes there's another side of a story that we don't hear too often. And these are stories about severe burnout. These are stories about addiction, workaholism, overcoming trauma, adversity. We're not going to wash over the hard parts of life here and the hard parts of entrepreneurship and the hard parts about being human. And the hard part of just like having big goals and ambitions and the sacrifice that are made in service of those goals. And, talking about goals, my goal for this is a pretty simple one. I want to help people wake up before their wake up call. And oftentimes it takes life stepping in and grabbing you by the fucking throat, pardon my French, in order for us to make actual changes in our lives. I know that's what it took for me, but I want this to be a platform where you can come to and hear that everyone goes through it. You're not alone. All these people you look up to, whatever it is you're going through, whatever intense stresses you've got going through at work or in your life, that you're not alone. And I don't want people to misconstrue this as, saying not to be ambitious. That's not the goal. It is okay to try to do impossible things. It's okay to be obsessed. It's okay to want a big life. But I also want to show the other side of what comes with that so that maybe we can deconstruct some of those ideas together and not lose ourselves along the way, which unfortunately, from time to time, I kind of did. But here's what you can expect. If you do decide to go on this journey with me, I'll be interviewing some successful friends, founders, execs, high performers who have reinvented themselves after some struggle, sometimes really, really intense struggle. And then I'll probably have some experts in the mental health and wellness and spirituality space to keep me honest, because I'm no expert. I don't have the answers, but a lot of really smart folks do. And, I'll also be traveling the world, trying to answer a lot of these big questions for myself. A few that come to mind is just, who am I if I'm not achieving things? If I'm not focused on that next big goal, if I'm not the VC guy, if I'm not the sales guy, who am I? I think these are questions a lot of us ask ourselves. And, why was I willing to sacrifice so much over and over and over again in pursuit of goalposts that I just kept moving myself? I just kept pushing them back. And, there has to be more to this thing that we call life than that. And what does that look like? What does a truly successful life look like? What is the definition of success? It's not money. I tried that. It's not status. I tried that. So what is it? Is it love? Is it connection? And I doubt I'll ever get to the bottom of those questions, but I'm going to try. That's what I'm going to focus my life on for a little while. And along the way, we can hopefully learn some things together and grow a little bit together. And so, how did I get here? I'll try not to trauma dump on you during, episode 1. I think that might be unwise, and there'll be plenty of time for that anyway. So, along with the interviews, I'm going to record an episode, similar like this one every week, where I'm just going to talk to you about what's going on, what I'm learning, what I'm thinking about. Call it a podcast diary of sorts, which sounds incredibly lame when I'm saying it out loud. So we'll come up with a better name for it. We're taking suggestions, comment below, shoot me an email, shoot me a message. But the short version is this. I'm kind of a cliche, I guess. I have been obsessed with achievement, success, money, since I was, as long as I can remember, about 6 years old. I wanted to be the best at everything. I wanted people to see me as the best at everything. If there was a game to play, I was going to play it, and I was going to do everything in my power to try to win that game. And let's just say I'm not super fun to play board games with. I think my mom can attest to that. There's been some Monopoly battles in the past that have gotten pretty intense. But I'm starting to sort of understand, thanks to a lot of therapy, where that comes from. But wherever it came from, it was ingrained in me deeply. And maybe it's something you're born with. I'm not sure. But I know I'm not alone in that feeling that you need to accomplish just one more thing, and then you'll be happy. And my whole life was set up in a way where as soon as I accomplished something hard, I would immediately go tackle the next thing. And that worked, for a while. It led to some really, really cool opportunities and some incredible experiences that I feel incredibly fortunate and lucky to have had. Whether it was acting, sports, business. I've won gold medals in the BC Summer Games for rugby. I've played in Australia, New Zealand. I started a bunch of commercials as a kid, which is pretty funny. I left my house at 18 years old, moved halfway across the world to Australia. I've sold stuff door to door. I've bartended. I've dropped out of college to start my own business. Story for another day. It's in the laundry subscription service. But yeah, and then, by 22, I was managing a whole team of sellers. I then got into tech, started at the very, very bottom of the totem pole as a BDR, and I clawed and scraped my way up to building, managing teams. I've carried and smashed, a multi-million-dollar quota and bag. I've been able to speak on stages all over the world, been part of a big acquisition. I have gone on the hyper growth 4-year run that everyone aspires to and wants to have in their career. We went from 20 mil to 250 mil ARR at Outreach while I was there. Became the youngest director in company history. I've hosted and built 2 big podcasts before this one. And for the last 4.5 years, I co-founded a VC firm, and we backed hundreds of founders and raised over $100 million. I got the corner office with the view. I had the coolest job out of everyone I knew. I got everything I thought I ever wanted. But not once did I look around and ask myself, why am I doing all of this? Is this what I actually still want? Or is this what 12-year-old Scott wanted for his life? Did I just somehow forget to update my software internally? And it felt like there was this hole inside of me that I could only fill with more success, more money, more escapism, just more. And, to say that journey almost killed me, would actually not be an exaggeration. Along that journey, I've ignored very serious ulcers for months. I've had to check myself into ER in Italy after 4 weeks straight on the road. I've gone weeks at a time with 1 to 2 hours sleep a night. I've lost very important relationships in my life. I have dragged myself into oblivion countless times to try to get just brief moments of peace. I got pretty hooked on sleeping pills, which was intense. And then, of course, you have to take stimulants on the other side when you're not sleeping to perform when you're exhausted. And that all led me to some really, really dark places, about as dark as you can get. And I know that's all probably crazy to say and crazy to admit on a podcast where everyone can hear. But, I think what I've come to learn is that my story is not all that unique. There's a lot of us out there that sacrifice our mind, our body, our soul in pursuit of success. And it comes in many different forms. And I think it's okay to talk about these things. I think we need to. I think it's actually really important. And maybe it serves as, an ounce of antidote for the hustle culture that's, shoved down our throats every single time we open up social media. Everyone has a perfect life. Everyone is super successful. One of the whole reasons I started this podcast was when I stepped down from the fund, I shared just a tiny shred of my story on LinkedIn. And I got hundreds, maybe thousands of calls, emails, texts from all of these successful people that you see online saying some version of, fuck man, I'm going through this right now, or I just went through this. Some of them were crazy stories that you honestly wouldn't even believe. Yet, if you look around, it's all up and to the right. Everything is always good. And so when you aren't feeling good, you feel like there's something wrong with you, and you feel super alone, and asking for help is tough. At least I know it was for me. And it took me, completely burning out for people to actually get real with me. And then I realized that everyone was going through it or is going through it as well. Um, so yeah, but I guess don't worry. This isn't going to be all doom and gloom. That's not the point. I like to think I'm kind of a fun, upbeat human most of the time. We're not just talking about insane stories of, people burning out, crashing out. For me, the real juice, the good stuff, comes from the stories of reinvention. And when people strip away everything and start down the path of waking up and exploring their own consciousness, expanding their awareness, serving others, building from a place of wholeness, that's when it gets juicy. And it's beautiful. And it's a privilege to have some of these conversations I've been having. And to that point, it's also serving as, we'll call it live therapy for me, to talk to people who are maybe a few steps ahead of me on their path to figuring this thing out, finding joy in their lives again, laughter, fulfillment, true purpose, if you will. And I can tell you, I'm far from having all the answers, and my nervous system, I get reminded again and again, is still completely shot, even when I'm doing cool things like this. I thought by stepping down and slowing down my life that I'd somehow be, magically cured. And then unfortunately, it's not the case. So that's also not the answer of just, removing yourself from the environment and running away maybe. But, I'm trying to undo 33 years of programming, and it hasn't been easy, but that's okay. I have tools now to deal with things in a healthier way. I just did some breath work before I jumped on and hit record. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. And you'll probably hear me talk about breath work over and over and over again over the course of this podcast. And you'll get sick of me, sick of hearing about it. But if you do decide to stick around, if you haven't tried holistic breath work, my plan is to just break you down until you try it, because it's helped me a lot. And I think everyone should bring it into their daily practice. Yeah, and then, in terms of what's going on in my life right now, I'll give you the quick rundown. We'll get more into it as these go, but I'm still in my hometown of Vancouver, Canada, as I'm recording this. It's been an absolutely insane week because I am still in the process of selling everything I own, and my house is sold. I'm in it right now, but it's extremely bare. There's boxes everywhere, and it's just getting more and more real by the day. And yeah, the owners take possession in 3 days, and I'm on a flight to Bali in 5 days, which is coming up this Friday. And yeah, my plan is to start in Bali. I'll probably stay there for a month or so. I do have to fly back to Vancouver for a week in August. A good friend of mine is filming a wellness documentary in kind of the psychedelic space, which he asked if I'd like to be a part of, which I'm going to do. Couldn't miss that. So I'll be back for about a week and a half. And then I'm likely going to go to Vietnam for a little while, then Sri Lanka, then Nepal. And we'll see how things go on the geopolitical spectrum. It's kind of weird times out there, but may end up in India for quite a while. And then from there, we'll see where I'm called to on this journey. I'm keeping it pretty open-ended. This could be anywhere from 6 months to 20 years. So we'll see. If I stop recording these 1 week and I just disappear, then you'll probably find me in some ashram in the mountains somewhere. And if that happens, then know that I'm probably happy. But yeah, I guess touching on the travel part quickly for me, it's just about complete freedom. And I realized all the shit I've accumulated didn't make me feel any better. I got the house, I got the car, I got the Rolex, I got the blah, blah, blah. And they all made me happy for 12 hours and then didn't do anything. So getting rid of all of that. And, I have been lucky over the course of my life to do a decent amount of travel, a lot for work. But there's always that pending return date, so this time there'll be no late night emails, no quick Zoom calls to jump on, just running around, being curious about everything. To me, that's a good space to go inward and try to figure some things out about myself and this little spinning rock of ours that we're on. It's funny just rambling. I haven't done this style of podcast before. They'll get more coherent as we go. One of the things I'm kind of thinking about is how funny it is to be 33, talking into a mic and admitting that you have no idea who you are without these, different titles that you gave yourself or someone gave you a long time ago. But yeah, on the road, what am I doing? I'm going to go to a lot of different yoga retreats, meditation retreats, Vipassana, I always pronounce that wrong, but silent meditation retreats. Going to try and do a 10-day one. I've heard those are really impactful and powerful. And, hopefully I stumble upon some happy, fulfilled people along the way who have some advice to give outside of just the interviews I do. I also want to say that it's not lost on me that this is a privilege to be in this position where I can do something like this. Not everyone can just throw away everything in their life and go on some big journey of self-discovery or have a full-blown 10 out of 10 midlife crisis. I get that. Most people have families, responsibilities, bills. But I've worked really, really hard for a really long time to get to this point, and I don't have kids. I don't have a family. So I have a family, of course, but no, they're old and they can take care of themselves. But yeah, I have a luxury of doing this, so why not? It's going to be me, a single backpack, a camera, and a mic. And my best friend, since I was about 3 years old, actually decided to join me pretty last minute, which is very, very cool. His name is Drew, and I'm sure I'll rope him into coming on some of these podcasts once in a while so you get to know him a little bit. So yeah, I don't know about this podcast format where I just ramble into it, but it's kind of fun. I've had 2 big podcasts in the past, always talking about growing your ARR and bringing down your CAC and blah, blah, marketing attribution and sales and marketing alignment. I do think I like this rambling thing a little bit more. And if I had to talk about how to use AI in sales, in your sales process one more time, I may have swan dived off my roof. It's getting a lot. It's cool. But I think I talked about it from every possible way you could. But I think that's it. This is just a welcome. This is, telling you what you can expect. And thank you again for being here. Thanks for being on this journey with me. I'm excited for you to hear some of these interviews I've recorded so far. I do think you'll like them. And, be patient with me as an interviewer. I think it's a totally different skill set I'm learning in holding space for these type of intense conversations. And I watch and listen to some of them back, and typically a smiley guy, but I think I smile too much for how intense some of these convos are and nervously laugh like I did right there in inappropriate times. But it is what it is. We're all a work in progress. It will be an interesting journey, and I'm glad you're here with me to share it. Let's try to wake up together.